Okay, aloha everyone. Okay. Aloha everyone. This is Healani Sonora Pale with Lahui Updates. Today is Sunday, August 30th, 2020. Everyone's still in lockdown due to COVID. I'm Healani Sonora Pale with KaLahuiHawaiiKomikeKalaiaina. And today's topic is the desecration of hundreds of Iwi Kupuna by the Grand Wailea Hotel on the island of Maui in South Maui. We are still kind of waiting for a few guests to come on, but I'll just add them on as they jump on. But I just wanted to, first of all, mahalo our guests for coming on. So right now we have Claire and we have Carol on with us. So if you can just share a little bit about yourself, Claire and Carol. Your name, where you from, and how you got involved with this issue of protecting our Iwi Kupuna in South Maui.
Certainly, I'm Claire Apana, and I'm from Wailuku, Maui. It's a very interesting story about this Grand Wailea intervention that we became involved in, and it has shown me so definitely that our kupuna are guiding us to a new way, a new life. Yeah, we were told about the project coming back again. This project's been trying to be in different forms from the year, I think, 2009. And it has, so it's been what, 11 years? So we heard that it was coming again in 2019. And the person was very concerned about the Iwi Kupuna and the land. So what we did was I went and checked it out. And when I went there, I could feel our kupuna were not happy. They were just not happy. And I particularly went down this set of stairs and went, oh my gosh, they're so distraught here. I don't know what's happening. I don't see anything. And later I found out that this is one of the places that they want to build a building right on top of these kupuna. And so that was enough for me to know that our kupuna are calling us. And so then that started our interaction, which has lasted over a year. And maybe if I knew how much work it was going to be, we wouldn't have done it, but I think we would still do it. Whatever our kupuna ask, then we're going to do our very best. And I found Carol Lee, who was already a part of our organization, Malama Kakanilua, which started in 2008 for the purpose of advocating for Iwi Kupuna. And she was already in our group, and she was quite touched by it. And I'll let her tell her own story.
Mahalo Clara Pana for that. And then mahalo Carol for being on the show.
Aloha no, mahalo Healani for inviting us and allowing us to tell the story of what's been happening with the Grand Wailea in South Maui. My name is Carolee Kamikona. My ohana comes from Mokuokeawe, my mother's side from the Kalapana area, and my dad's side from the Kohala area. I've been on Maui since 2002. Like Claire said, I was a part of Malama Kakanilua, which is advocating for the protection of our Iwi Kupuna in all areas of the Kopai'aina, but especially here on Maui Nui. I used to go to the Grand Wailea because my cousin worked there. So I used to go and visit her at work quite a bit, take my kids down there, go swimming at the beaches and stuff like that. And I never understood why I had such an uneasy feeling of being down there. until Claire talked to me about the issue with the Grand Wailea expansion and the renovation that they wanted to do. And it kind of made sense to me that maybe that's, someplace that I need to do more research on. And so when I found that my grandmother had done our mo'oku auhau, it leads back to a kupuna that is attributed to living in that ahupua'a in the 1100 AD. So because of that, it made me understand even more that it was a calling that I needed to listen to, and I needed to follow up on and see what it was Kupuna wanted, why they were calling me, why I had that uneasy feeling for so long, but just didn't understand why or what it was all about. And in being a part of this contested case, it has really, the Kupuna have really come forward and said, these are the things that are happening. These are the things that we don't want to see. And we need you to be our voices. And therefore, that's why we filed the intervention. And that's why we are fighting to be the voice of our Iwi Kupuna. So mahalo again for having us here.
Mahalo, Carol. Beautiful, beautiful stories and mo'olelo behind your involvement on this important issue. I wanted to kind of start, because it's such a spiritual topic, I wanted to kind of start with Olelo no Iao, that says, that really speaks to how we treat our Iwi Kupuna. And the Olelo no Iao goes, Mai kaula'i wale I ka iwi o nā kupuna. Do not dry out the bones of our ancestors. The bones of our ancestors are something that are very sacred to us as a Lahui, as a people, culturally. And it was believed to be one of the worst things you could do, is to uncover and lay out the bones of our kupuna in the sun. And so I wanted to just share that. This is one of those topics where it's very sensitive, because we are talking about our kupuna, our Iwi Kupuna. Okay, someone just came on, and I think this is Kaniloa. Okay, so we're gonna add him on. Kaniloa Kamau. Oh, I'm sorry, not Kamaunu. Mahalo. Aloha, Kaniloa. Okay.
Unmute yourself.
Aloha. There you go. Hi, Kaniloa. Aloha.
Sorry, I late.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so we just finished with introductions, but can you just share a little bit about yourself, Kaniloa, and why, your name, where you're from, and why you took up this issue with the Iwi Kupuna in Wailea?
Okay, so again, my name is Kaniloa Kamaunu. I come from the Mokopuni o Maui. Moko o Eluku. Ahapa'a Waihe'e. Waihe'e, Hawaii Valley. So I am 57 years old, and about 13 years ago, kind of was introduced to Claire Apana and another person, my nephew, and through my wife, they were meeting together about Hawaiian stuff, and so I just kind of sat in and listened to their discussions, and then as time went on, I kind of found myself involved in, getting to know my Hawaiian side, and then of course the issue of the Iwi Kupuna that was happening in our area, and so through Claire, I kind of got involved that. So, and ended up, well, today we're in that contested case with the Grand Wailea.
Mahalo. So I kind of just wanted to sum up to people about what this issue is about, really. Thank you, Kanaka, for coming on. And I know you in the middle of a break right now, so we mahalo you for coming, using your break time to share about this mo'olelo. But so what I wanted to kind of share with people what this issue is really about. So it's a Grand Wailea resort, which is located in South Maui. What they did was they applied for a special management permit. This is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, to expand the resort by 151 rooms, add a garage level, 3 swimming pools, guest rooms, and then and what was the concern was that when they built this hotel back in 1987, they actually unearthed hundreds of Iwi Kupuna. So there was a contested case filed by 3 groups, the Malama Kakanilua, Ho'oponopono o Makena, and the Pele Defense Fund. And to stop this extension or expansion of the Wailea Grand Resort. The Wailea Grand Resort claims that they desecrated only 344 burials but actually it's more, according to Claire and eyewitnesses who have seen them unearth Iwi Kupuna and actually try to hide it. So there's no real transparency, from what I gather, about how many Iwi Kupuna have actually been unearthed so far, and what if this expansion goes through, then we're pretty much, there's going to be probably hundreds more of Iwi Kupuna that's going to be unearthed and desecrated. So so just if you can just kind of share a little bit of the history, Claire, about that. Oh, I think you got to unmute yourself, Claire.
The first work started in the 70s, where they came through with the sewer line, and they found hundreds of Iwi Kupuna at that time. And they buried them on the property of the Grand Wailea. Don't know where they came from. They were just workers that picked up the bones. They put them into wooden boxes, and sometimes they call it the beer boxes. But these were later found, and there's a lot of contention about the reporting of these burials also. But that was in the 70s. In the 87, 86, PHRI, Paul Rosenthal, the same people who were doing Honokahua, came to the Grand Wailea and started to do some archaeological work in preparation for building. And so, mind you, this is all about the same time that Honokahua is happening. This is the same archaeology firm doing it. And what happens is, in 1987, they find 2 platform burials in a very considerably sacred site, which they say, save this site, send it to the National Historic Register. And what happens is they decide they're going to bulldoze it to make the hotel. They want to put the hotel right there. And so they get a memorandum of agreement from Office of Hawaiian Affairs, same as Honokahua. All the trustees sign it, but they think that they're carefully reinterring 2 burials, 2 platforms, burials. But what happens is they start working, they find many, many more burials. And so they come back to make an amendment to that MOA, and they make a blanket agreement to disinter and reinter respectfully. And they make an agreement for an area to be the burial preserve. which means they're planning on disinterring these iwi, and that's exactly what they do. The work guys tell us there was like a pyramid of bones that they found when they started digging, and they moved these bones up to the north corner near where the parking lot is now, and built a hotel. And this is very little known, that this hotel is built on a burial ground. This is the
So the
only
parking lot
property in this
actually-
area that has so many burials.
Sorry,
ahead.
so the Grand Wailea parking lot is actually on burials? Is that what you're saying?
The whole thing is on burials. This is a burial ground. There's been burials found all over this property. And then they have added to it by desecrating the way that they did the construction, so that there were pieces of bones all over the property, which they put into the sand fill. And then the sand fill was distributed over the property. So if they weren't all over the property, they certainly are now. But there were sites found literally all over this property. This was a place where people lived. It is a beautiful bay. It's called Kahamanini Bay, named after the manini fish. I myself, when I was growing up, this is a place that local people went. They stay there, they fish, the camp the whole weekend, and the fish were so abundant. Ashford de Lima will tell you, who is a resident and grew up in this area, that they used to do hukilau there. There were so many fish that they could go out in the water and throw their net and do the hukilau style of fishing. And he said, as time went on, there was no more hukilau. And this bay is just tremendously beautiful, but it is only one of 2 sandy bays in this area. So it is just my thought that one of the reasons there are so many burials is because of the sand. Not only was it a good place to land for canoes, like if you're coming to invade, when Kalaniʻōpuʻu came for the Battle of Kakanilua, he would land on this place because it's sandy rather than lava. And maybe the battle started there. There are many reports of broken bones that are found with the burials, and not from machines, but broken bones. So there's such a rich history. Imagine a bay that is just filled with fish, and so much so that it came all the way into our era, continuing on to provide sustenance and food for the people. And then we put a hotel on it, and in the last 3 years, it's been closed because it had such high bacteria count. So that's, can we afford to keep losing our places that feed us? And the stories of these places. But I'll let you go on to Kaniloa or Carol so that you can continue the story.
Thank you for that history. So, and really, all of our places are very special, but this place, so many Iwi Kupuna are being found there in Wailea. So, Wailea is located in the Ahupua'a of Pai'ahu, from my understanding, right?
Correct.
And which is, I just kind of giving people an idea of where this place is, because I don't know, I'm not from Maui, so I don't know Maui too much. But I wanted to kind of have you guys, maybe Kaniloa can share about where they put the bones. Where did they put our Iwi Kupuna when they unearthed them? Do you know? And what happens to them in the other side of the world when they split these guys up?
Our researcher on that is Carol. If you, up to you, Carol, Kaniloa, but Carol is the one who did all the research on that and read all the documents.
And then Kaniloa, if you can talk on that spiritual aspect of splitting up the ohana, that would be great. But Carol, can you share what happened to the bones, all those hundreds of Iwi Kupuna they unearthed?
In all the reports that I have read, they have been disinterred and taken to places that we are unsure if they've even been reinterred. Reports state that they were taken to a McKenna cemetery. I've asked people that are from McKenna if they know of a McKenna cemetery back in the late 80s and 90s, and nobody knows anything about a McKenna cemetery. Maybe assumption is that it's Keawala'i. Keawala'i Church has a cemetery on grounds. Maybe it was there. There's no actual confirmation of where McKenna Cemetery was. Also, reports state that some of the iwi were taken to Kapalua. At the time, like Claire said, Honokohua was happening. So some of the iwi were taken up to Kapalua. We also have one of our witnesses in the case who was a driver for the trucking company. She vividly remembers how iwi were put in white buckets, and she had to take the white buckets up to what is now the R&T Park, the Research and Technology Park on Lipoa. At the time, they were sandblasting for the road, and there was a golf course that was coming up there, and the iwi were put in the gulch and covered by all the rocks that they were getting sandblasted from. So really, the amount of iwi that was actually found on that 36-acre parcel, the exact amount is not known, although they only claim there's about 200 put in 2 different burial preserves that are located on property. So in the osteological report, it shows that there's over 344 that were found. Although, you know, the hotel archaeologist is claiming that there's only like 200, which is incorrect. So Connie, I will defer to you as far as the trauma and the emotional aspect that is affecting not only our Iwi Kupuna, but also us here.
You know, what people forget is our, I shouldn't say forget, but what we've lost is the understanding of our culture as far as like the iwi is concerned, or, you know, afterlife. If you look into the culture itself, you know, it's like any other culture that they believe that there was an after or is an afterlife. They believe that, you know, life continues on in another sphere, in another, you know, how can I say, in another world, if you put it in that fast. And so, you know, we've forgotten that for us, you know, so let's take it this way. Sorry, let me take it back. So when you're dealing with these entities like the state and the county and developers, now you have to understand they're Western thinking. The number one thing is they bought something and they want the value out of that area. So they don't care about anything about culture, because that all it is to them is a roadblock, and that it interferes with their progression to go forward. And so with the Iwi Kupuna, it's more of an inconvenience to them. And then as you go to these meetings, you start to realize that they've done this practice of disinterment, desecration, digging up iwi. It's becoming everyday practice. It's acceptable, and it's just an inconvenience to them. And the only thing they worry about the culture, to connect to the culture, is how the culture is gonna make them money, and that's what they worry about. So when you have such things like the intrusion of people coming in and all of a sudden digging up burial sites, they don't realize it in our culture that we still believe that our kupuna is alive. They may not be physically here, but we believe that they're there. They still influence us. They still help us. They still, guide us. And that is our culture. And that's why even in our culture, kupuna were highly regarded for their wisdom. So much more are the Iwi Kupuna, especially, if they were, if you look at as far as mana is concerned, such as warriors or chiefs, or those that have a lot of mana, especially their Iwi is considered highly prized. And they just not thrown all over the place, and they just not discarded, and they're placed into areas where they're properly preserved. They have such things as trinkets that they take with them after they pass on here. They have also, even some of them have their pets with them to go with them. So for us, they still live on. And so what I've learned is that, especially like in an area like this, we have children, that's when you have families, it's probably a village. Near the ocean, it's probably a fishing village. And with the amount of burials that they found, it was a large village. And so this is a family. And just because you die doesn't mean that that connection stops. So for us, if the spirit still lives on, right, and say they don't move on to what we call heaven or go to God or whatever, they still live on, and they live in this spirit. We just cannot see them. And so their connection to those that are buried with them is the same as if you were alive. That's still their parents, that's still their grandmother, their grandfather, their mother, their father, their daughters, their sisters, brothers, sons. So the thing is, now imagine if somebody came into your house and ripped your family apart. That would be devastating. I mean, if we can just think about it in that sense, that is devastating. To have somebody taken from you. And so, how do you think they feel when these bulldozers, excavators come in and they start to take this family apart? Do we think that in that realm they don't hurt? Do we think in that realm that they don't look for their mother or their father or their brother or their sister, their family member? Do you think if there's no impact, there is an impact? And the thing is, we don't realize that even in that spiritual realm, that they get torn apart. I had an experience with my uncle who deals in that area, and he went to go help somebody. And to make a long story short, what ended up happening was the reason for all the teva that was going on in that person's house was because the spirit that was left there, the Iwi that was left there, was looking for his wife and his children and was asking, where is my family? And was trying to communicate to these people, but they don't understand, right? They don't understand that this is what happening. So this person is very angry because he's not getting answers. He cannot find his loved ones and is left there by himself. And so when my uncle realized this, he never thought about that. And so, he had to help this kupuna find peace and to be able to find his family, because he was so upset that he couldn't find them. And he was trying to get answers, but of course, these people cannot hear him. But when he found somebody that could, and where my uncle could help him to move on, everything changed. I mean, you can believe me or not, but I know what the people felt.
Well,
I know what the people felt, and so
that makes sense, because even now today, we want to be buried with our family. We don't want to be like
right.
on one side of the island and our kids are on the other side. I mean, think about it today. Where do we want to be buried? Or, you know, if you want to be buried, where do you want to be? If you're cremated, where do you want your ashes to be scattered? You know what I mean? So you actually want it always to be with your ohana. So even today, that's
Right.
that's the whole belief of our people.
Absolutely. And we've seen this in many sites as we experienced this at the Safeway site where Kaniloa and I really started to advocate for Iwi Kupuna, where the baby could be heard. Different people reported hearing the baby crying, and then another adult saying, "Where's my family? Where's my family?" So I being naive, went to the archaeologist and said, "Please, we need to get this family together. Can I please come up and at least say prayers for the Iwi that you've taken off this property and is in your office?" And I never got a response to that, you know. But on that Safeway property, a workman caught on fire while he was in the ground doing electrical work, you know, and the machines would roll off the hill. I cannot imagine what happened on this Grand Wailea property, except that there were so many sightings of our Iwi Kupuna, of what people might call spirits or ghosts walking the halls when they were building, when they finished building, and all the way till today. There are some rooms that they cannot use. And what that means to me is our people are still not at rest. And this is so important for us as a Lahui, that we find peace for our kupuna, for our Iwi Kupuna, where they really guide us and they make the way for us. And the least we can do is show them that much reverence to find peace for them as they lay, waiting to be in service, waiting to finish their missions in whatever you may think it is, and whatever they believe. They have purpose and they have a place. And truly, could we as a Lahui not do better by them? Could we not help to say, Ole, you are not building hotels on this, and you're not going to build 2 more wings and 3 more swimming pools, and you're not going to dig up where all the children were found buried. You're not going to dig that up anymore. Ole, stop it. And that's pretty much what we came to say. But along the way, we find they have 5 injection wells. They're polluting that water. You know, they're taking away a place that was sustenance for Kanaka. They're taking away the story of who we were when we lived there. And so that someone like Carol comes now, she finds her connection, and she finds the connection to the heiau is quite possibly in a parking lot. They built a garage over what used to be maybe the heiau.
So tourists are parking on our kupuna. That's basically what's happening.
They're all over. They dismantled many sites there to build what they thought was a grand hotel. But I think that for us, Heilani, is in my feeling, and this is just me, my feeling is that our kupuna, Iwi Kupuna, are not at rest because they are truly not safe, because people will always want to make more money by building upon them and intruding upon this space, their sacred space of afterlife. And what we have to realize is there are maybe people who could have stopped this early on. Perhaps Office of Hawaiian Affairs could have said, Ole, that's enough. We never intended to let you disinter hundreds and hundreds of people. We never intended to let you put a water feature over these people in a restaurant. We never intended to see that and stop. you're going to stop right now. And I'm hoping and waiting for them to say that now, to say, we're going back, we're going to do what's right, we're going to put everybody back in the right place, and we are going to protect them forever. We're going to make sure that those babies will never have another injection well built within their burial place. We're going to make sure that there's no parking lot on top of the children. That is really, I think, where we should be as a Lahui, as we bring the reverence and the respect back to our Iwi Kupuna, so do we bring back this sacredness and the real depth that our Lahui is.
Mhm.
You know?
Right. And this type of unearthing of our kupuna has been going on for generations. Um, Probably over 100 years now. They've been digging up our kupuna. This is a picture of about 257 adult skulls on the roof of Bishop Museum. This is the type of things they do. And then they take our skulls and they put numbers on them. I mean, it's awful, you know. And Kaniloa brings up a good topic about splitting up our ohanas in the other side, which, I never really looked at it that way, but when you think about it, that's pretty traumatic for our kupuna. But Claire, you did mention about the Honokohau issue, and if you can kind of share a little bit about that. That was back in 2009.
Honokahua happened in 1988,
1988.
where, at the same time, Kaho'olawe, the objection to the bombing in Kaho'olawe was going on. And some of the people heard about what was going on at Honokahua and came to see. And they from another island, I believe it was Palikapu Deadman, called the rest of the Lahui, said, hey, this has got to stop. They're unearthing our kupuna from a known burial ground that is also already registered. But everybody had signed off, the state, OHA, SHPD, all of the bodies had signed off to allow this to happen. By the time it was stopped by the efforts of the Lahui, there were 1,200 burials at least that had been disinterred. And they protested at the Capitol, and the protest grew as the day grew longer. They ended up with hundreds of people protesting outside Governor John Wailea Christmas party, and he decided that he would put a stop to it and pay the hotel and have them move their hotel up higher, bring the kupuna back. This hotel is one of the few hotels on Maui which will not be affected by sea level rise. So what do you think about that, But at the same time, in Wailea, at the Wailea Grand Hotel, the Hyatt, they were trying to hide the fact that the same thing is going on. It was not a registered cemetery, but they were finding hundreds of Iwi Kupuna, and they wanted to keep it hushed up. There was a letter sent from the Grand Wailea people, the Wailea Hotel, that thanked OHA and SHPD for keeping it quiet, because they didn't want to have the same attention called to the Grand Wailea. So it's like, we not only have to fight a private developer, we have to fight our own government and the people who are supposed to be protecting what is sacred, protecting the cultural sites, protecting the Iwi Kupuna. They are all in it, and we have to go and fight them for protection of our Iwi Kupuna, really a natural inherent human right.
Yeah. So I wanted to share this picture because didn't they move the hotel at Honokohua?
Well,
And-
they hadn't built it yet, but they were going to build it closer to the ocean, right where the burials were.
Mhm.
And so they were unearthing the burials to get ready for the construction of the hotel. So the hotel plans got moved up the hill, and the kupuna came back into the area that they originally came from. That
So this-
was 1989.
Yeah, and this is a picture of the hedge that actually is the boundary of where the kupuna are, and so the hotel actually had to move. And in your opinion, do you think that's why they're trying to keep quiet about how many iwi kupuna they're actually truly finding? It's because they don't want to have to move or change their plans. I don't know.
Absolutely. I'm going to let Carol answer that because, quite possibly many of these Iwi Kupuna may be her family because her family lived in that area, and she has been following the burial preserves and what the impact of what the hotel wants to do to the burials that exist now.
So there is what they call the North Burial Preserve, which is Shipty number 8658. At the request of cultural practitioners whom they have discussed this whole project with, it was asked that the burial preserves, both the North Preserve 8658 and the South Preserve 6057, be registered with the Bureau of Conveyance. That was done within the last year. Although the hotel started its construction back in 1987, 1988, that's what, 30 plus years.
Oh my gosh.
30 plus years before we even got any kind of recognition that our kupuna were even there. So the difference between the two preserves, the South Preserve has a stone wall around it, and it has two entrances. The two entrances have signs that say, this is kapu, yeah, do not enter. And there's a little ahu in the middle. So in that area, we don't know exactly where our kupuna are, but at least there's an area that's set aside for them. Up at 8658, the North Preserve, it's been told to us that that is where a majority of the kupuna that were found, the iwi kupuna that were found on site, were put. That preserve has 3 mounds. Around the mounds are like naupaka and tea leaf, which are not very cared for. I mean, there's branches that are, fallen, there's leaves all over the place. It's not a very well cared for preserve. It is also not marked as a burial preserve, as a place that is kapu. It's not, it's not listed as any kind of sacred place or anything. And it's right next to, or I should say right in between the parking garage and the Wailea wing. So if you're on the balcony of your room at the Wailea wing, you're basically overlooking our kupuna. So the disgrace and the disrespect of people just hanging around out on the lanai, drinking, yelling, kids running up and down. Where's the peace for our kupuna? They were laid to rest there. They were taken from their original site. They were put someplace else. And even at that place that they were put, they're still not at rest. So they're angry. They're very, very angry because they're not being respected. They're not being revered. So what do we, or what can we as a Lahui do to ensure that whenever any of us, any Kanaka Maoli is canoed into the ground, yeah? What is our assurance that we will never ever be disinterred and desecrated and disturbed in perpetuity? There's nothing that exists because they don't respect us as a people. If you look in the Western society, they have this place that they call a cemetery that you can go to. And that's where they bury their people. And everybody knows it's a cemetery, and everybody knows that you don't go disturbing, you don't yell and scream, go drinking or whatever, yeah? I mean, yeah, you can go visit your kupuna, you can maybe have a picnic, you know, kuka with them. Yeah, it's understood. But you don't see anybody going to a cemetery and disinterring everybody because they want to build on top of it. Our kupuna are being desecrated for greed, for profit, and development. For whom? Not us. Not us at all. So Lahui, what can we do to help our Iwi Kupuna? What can we do?
Can I interject something?
Sure.
Okay, so talked about the spiritual, talked about the heva that's going on. So just as the culture, people don't realize what our political status is. Carol talks about finding resolve. Well, you know, the people don't, and that happens to be in our generation, 2 generations in fact, don't realize that we have a political status. In 2014, the federal government was trying to see what the air was about, what was the feeling about the people wanting to have a government-to-government interaction. They're talking about their recognition. What people don't realize is that we actually are recognized. In fact, if you were to actually read the synopsis of that bill for recognition, they'll tell you that they recognize us in their laws 151 times. 151 times. But people don't realize that, and I always say this, that we're not Americans. And the federal government doesn't deny that. The state and county try to play that off. But when you look at our history, because of the Kauai petition, 1898, it stops them from the annexation, right? And they have to change from a treaty of annexation to a resolution. So that's one thing people should look at. There was a resolution of annexation, not a treaty. With a treaty, you have to have the people that actually matter, that has to agree to a treaty. And so we didn't agree to it. So the people that they were dealing with weren't the real people who had rights to KaLahuiHawaiiKomikeKalaiaina. So they had to do a resolve. Yeah. Again, in 1900, the 56th Congress recognized that not all people were citizens of the Republic of Hawaii, and that there was a group of people that did not want to become part of this deal for annexation, which was us, which was our kupuna. 1993, the apology bill that comes up between now, and people got to realize this. A lot of people say it's rubbish, but you have to realize who signs this bill. One, you have 2 senators representing the state of Hawaii who represent the people, citizens of the state of Hawaii, signed that bill. And also the representative of the United States signs that bill.
Mhm.
So, but when they do that, they actually, all they're saying is that they signify, one, they did crimes against us. Two, that we still sovereign. And all they're doing is reiterating what was already said in 1898, that we didn't want to become part of the United States. 1900, they still recognize that we're not part of the United States. And 1993, we still not part of the United States. So with that being said, the negativity of being called a Native Hawaiian throws us into the realm of United States citizens under their statutes, their federal statutes. And they like to call us Native Hawaiians because they like to control us. So they call our Iwi Kupuna Native Hawaiians, but they're not Native Hawaiians. They were never American citizens. And in 1860, the kingdom put into play a law to protect burials. And it states, unless you have authority, they cannot be moved. They cannot be disinterred. So the only people with authority over Iwi Kupuna would be who? The Ohana.
Mhm.
So if the Ohana doesn't allow you to do so, you cannot. And because of our political status with the United States, which they recognize 151 times, that is all still in play. That's all still in play. The thing is, we're not reminding them of their trust obligations to protect the Kanaka Maoli and our culture, which is our Iwi Kupuna. And so when I go to meetings, that's the number one thing I always tell them. They're not your people. And you cannot treat them like they're your people. What you guys are doing is committing a crime against people who have a law that was given to protect them. So the thing is, we as the Lahui, to answer Carol's situation, have to speak that language because it's already afforded in federal law that's recognized. But the thing is, if we don't start talking and making that the narrative, then they're going to continue to do business as usual. And one last comment, I know you for time, is that in our court case, for our coming up contested case, we were not given a contested case by the department or the BLNR, Board of Land and Natural Resources, because they said we had no property rights. Well, we went to court, and
Crazy.
in court, the findings of the court was stated that we do have property rights because of the Iwi Kupuna and the situation that was happening up on Mauna Kea.
So
So
that's really a key
we
point.
recognize,
That's a key point.
yes,
Yeah. So hey, can I
because
give
they
you a
always
little
tell us,
history about that? About this? I was, it's because it relates to the Kupuna. We had an EV conference in 2018, excuse me. And in that EV conference, it became clear that we were not being recognized for having property interest in our Iwi Kupuna, which then made it like we didn't really have much of a say, which is ridiculous, a ridiculous point, but it was a legal point. And when we went to contest what we feel is a very poor situation where an archaeology company is given license when the person who owns it does not have an archaeology license and has been found guilty of really mistreating our Iwi Kupuna. So we went to get a contested case when they got their permit. And what happened was Alan Downer said, well, you can't have one because you have no property interest. So
Who's Alan Downer?
Alan Downer is the head of the State Historic Preservation Department who gives the permits, who really pretty much is in charge of all the burial laws and making sure that they are followed. They are brought in on permits to see if any cultural or burials are going to be impacted before they get permits, and doing rather a poor job, I'd say, from how many Iwi Kupuna are being impacted. So we went back to circuit court, and with the help of tremendous attorneys, we went back to circuit court, and we were granted from that circuit court, the Second Circuit Court of Maui, one, that we should be able to have a contested case from SHPD, who gives the permit, and two, we have property interest in our Iwi Kupuna. For me, this was like a huge, huge step. I have never seen anybody recognized for that before, although it's a no-brainer for us, right? And so now we have this contested case, and we are just coming off of the last contested case at the Grand Wailea. So what has happened is Kaniloa and I were the named plaintiffs. And so we will be doing this case pro se. And they have tried to take all the wind out of our sails by putting us not in SHPD as the judge ordered, but having the contested case heard by the BLNR. And we have objected and objected and objected to this, but the case will be on Tuesday, and we will bring forth evidence of why this particular company should not be given a permit. And
I just wanted to share a picture. I like to share pictures of people who say things that are heva. So he's the one that said we do not have property interests in the case, and therefore we cannot protect our Iwi Kupuna.
we do not have property interest in our Iwi Kupuna.
Okay, this is
It's huge, you know.
And he runs the State Historic Preservation Division.
Yes.
Scary.
Yes.
Okay, so right now, where we are with the where are we with the contested case? I heard that, so it was in the news, right, that they weren't going to have the contested case made public. It wasn't going to be public hearings.
The contested case on the Grand Wailea.
So Claire, I gotta, sorry to say, I gotta leave. Because I started in a little bit, but thank you so very much for having me, and I'll leave you in the capable hands of Claire and Carol to finish off. But
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaniloa.
thank you very much.
Thank you
Ahui o kako.
for the Lahui.
Mahalo, Kani. So
Aloha.
to recap about the Grand Wailea contested case. Now, this has been going since last May, when we, or last June, when we, and not 20, 19, in 2019. It's been going since then that we have applied for to have a contested case. And in the process of this, we have seen so many things about how the public is treated in a contested case such as this. You know, as you know, like the Mauna Kea contested case, this is a chance for the public to come forward and bring information, right? This is a chance for the public to have a say. And what happened was, as COVID hit, the hearing officer said, everything will be private. As a matter of fact, the very first thing that she did was she was going to not allow us to come, only the attorneys, like us, the groups. We were not going to be able to come to the hearings, but we were able to do that, just only 5 of us. We couldn't invite our families. We couldn't invite other people who are in our groups because we were limited by the hearing officer. And so this case was the subject of a Supreme Court objection by the writ of mandamus, saying that this is supposed to be a public process, and that the media, actually, I thank the media and Lance Collins so very much for doing this, because it is important that the public continue to have the right to have contested cases. They said that they wanted to be able to come to our hearing. And so it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yes, this is to be a public hearing. It is supposed to be public. So we were given a webinar public hearing, and before we even got started, we had a case that already went to the Supreme Court, and it continues. It continues. The rights of the public are often just stepped on by these agencies, such as the County of Maui, different departments, the hearing officer. You know, it was sad. It came out later in the trial that she was actually a cousin of one of the people who was in the group that was the ones who took care of the reinterment of the original kupuna. You know,
the hearing officer, Lyndon Justings.
yes, and I can't say that anything was wrong with that, but to find out in the middle of the case that she was cousins with somebody who was part of the group, the Alanuio McKenna, who was really, you know, they have done some really great things, but in this case, I just think that the kupuna, the Iwi Kupuna, wish that they had stopped it when you could see that it was getting out of hand, and it was Honokahua all over again. As a matter of fact, this was a group that was at Honokahua helping with the Iwi there also. But to find out, you know, like on the third day of the case or the second day of the case, that she's actually related to somebody who was so intimately related to this, all that has happened at this hotel, was quite a blow to myself anyway.
The other thing was she the one that closed the hearings, the contested case hearings?
Yes.
So Lyndon was the woman pictured here. She's the one, the hearings officer, who tried to close the hearings to the public on the contested case for hundreds of our Iwi Kupuna. This is Lyndon here.
What is sad is I was so happy. We didn't know anything about her. The Planning Commission chose. We tried to get Kanaka to be able to be considered as hearing officers, and the planning department really blocked us from doing this. And so I was pleased when I found out that she is part Kanaka, right? And I said, wow, maybe she has some understanding of what we are talking about, what our concerns are. But, you know, it is so sad that often we find ourselves, this is the hardest part. I think I could fight a developer forever, you know, and had to have the get up and go to get up the next morning and fight them again. But to fight our own Lahui is just disheartening to me. I mean, you know, it is the thing that brings tears to our eyes, that we have to fight our own people to try to protect and take care of our Iwi Kupuna. Why is that? You know, why, if we do not hold the viewpoint, Heilani, that we should allow development to go on despite how much desecration of our Iwi goes on with it, why would we be singled out as bad people, you know, or kooks or nuts? It is our inherent right to protect our Iwi Kupuna. It is like one of the deepest traditions that we have, and yet other Kanaka will make fun of us. And you know, I mean, I don't really care, except that it breaks my heart that we are divided by such an issue. So
Thank you. And I love this picture of you with your sign. So even though the principal investigator tried to keep the public, the meetings or the hearings private, Lance Collins and other attorneys who intervened was able to reopen those to the public. So that was a great win for all of you.
It was. It
Yeah.
was really.
Are the hearings done for the contested case?
The hearings are done and the findings of fact and the conclusions of law have to be turned in tomorrow. And, you know, I feel very sorry that I didn't make a different decision, but because this is in the Planning Commission, it's a public hearing and the documents, including the transcripts that come, are public. And the price of it was like almost $4,000. And so we decided to go in manually and get the research that our attorney needed. And I'm just really sorry because it was not an easy thing to do, and it took hours to try to keep it organized, and it took hours of our time, but then hours of her time to try to keep this information organized when really it's a public document. This is a contested case for the Planning Commission. It is all about the public. And our attorney did file a complaint, which I'm glad for, because these things are important. You know, we don't have the money like say the Grand Wailea, the BRE and the Blackstone people. We don't have that kind of money.
Issues going, and we don't have a legal fund for our people. That's what we really need to get on top of, making a legal fund, because we're reusing the same attorneys over and over who do it for free for us. People like Lance Collins, you know, people like Bianca Isaki. They're not even Kanaka, and they're helping us on so many levels, you know, especially in this case is one of them.
You know, our gratitude goes out to them because on the EV issues, we didn't have much movement in terms of stopping what was going on, especially the sand mining, until they came and helped us. And amazingly, you know, the law was there for the last 30 years where they couldn't move that sand ever out of those districts. And it takes the concerted effort of many people, but it's interesting to me that they have come forward for many things for our Lahui. And I just hope that maybe some of the young lawyers would want to come in and help and learn something from these two people.
If there are any Kanaka Maoli attorneys there, we really do need help. All of us are doing this for free, using our own money. I mean, there's so many battlefields, you know, quote unquote, you know, that where like it's overwhelming sometimes, you know. So we really do need the help. What's unfortunate is that there are Kanaka Maoli attorneys on the Wailea side, which is that is Kaumaha. That's Kaumaha, because that's hundreds of our kupuna. Maybe, I don't know, could be over 1,000 of them that's buried there, you know.
I feel very sad that Bill Meheula is my classmate, one, and then second, that Natasha actually helped to write the Iwi Kupuna primer of the laws of the burials. And I just, you know, I have asked for help from her because I felt she might be an expert, but was never afforded volunteer help like we have received, our Lahui has received from other people like Kahea and Lance Collins and Bianca Isaki. But yet then I find and see her in a case against us. And for myself, truthfully, Heilani, it was not that we are afraid of it or anything, but I think about, what about her ohana? What about, can we live our life with this? That in one time we are standing up for the Iwi Kupuna and the laws, and on the other side we stand against people who are just trying to bring out the truth and bring out the truth and protect them.
Right.
I
Mahalo.
mean,
Chair. So
your whole life.
we gotta wrap up.
Okay, hello.
I wanted Carol,
Oh.
if you can just say a few last words. I know that your application for your to apply as a lineal descendant is still pending. And we wish you luck on that. Hopefully they'll get it on the agenda. The Maui Burial Council will get it on the agenda soon instead of giving you the runaround. Do you have any last words, Carol? Anything you want to say, how people can help or kako or support protecting the Iwi Kupuna of Wailea?
I don't only think it's the Iwi Kupuna of Wailea. I think it's all the issues that are affecting us as a Lahui. The Ihe are coming at us from all different angles. And wherever your passion lies, kokua, ho'olohi, nona kupuna. Listen to your kupuna and listen to what they're telling you. Whatever issues you have a passion for, stand up, get educated, find out what's going on, and do what you can. For our Iwi Kupuna, not only is Maui experiencing this heva, but yeah, you guys are too. And so I just ask our Lahui to listen to the kupuna, listen to what they're telling you. If you want to come forward, please do, because we need our younger generation to hapai that kuleana, to awama that kuleana, because we aren't going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And yet all this heva will be, until we can actually be recognized as people, of this aina, and given the respect that we so deserve. They're going to keep coming after us, and we need to keep fighting, unfortunately.
Mahalo. Mahalo, Carol. That's beautiful.
I'm mahalo to you for allowing us this opportunity to come forward and be able to share with our Lahui at least what is going on with us here on Maui. And I would like to, if you don't mind, give a major shout out to two beautiful people who are always there for our Lahui. They don't ask for much in return. They could, but they don't. And so to you, Lance Collins, and to you, Bianca Isaki, my deepest and greatest aloha from my na'au. Mahalo nui to the both of you.
Hi.
Mahalo. Any last words?
Yeah, Lani,
There?
we have a website. It's called Malama Kakanilua. And we have a Facebook page called Malama Kakanilua.
Okay.
And please,
I'll put the links on this.
We will put the Zoom information so that if you want to follow, you want to see Kaniloa Kamanu finally have his chance. He has been speaking in the Burial Council all these years saying, you are not qualified to do this. You are not qualified to do this. And so on Tuesday, we will be having a contested case about that. And if you'd be interested in seeing that, we will have that information on the Malama Kakanilua sites.
Got it. I'll put the link to your website on this show. so people can go there. Do you have a page?
Pardon me?
Do you have a donation page where we can donate?
I will put one up on our website page. And so I'll put that in because truthfully, the Grand Wailea case has gone on and on, somewhat needlessly long. And I'm not sure how it will turn out. So, but our Iwi Kupuna will not be built upon again.
Nope. We have to make sure, we really do. We have to make sure protect our Iwi Kupuna. And I want to mahalo both of you for all your work, all your years, sacrifice. It's a lot of work, and you know, it's not done in the light, right? I mean, it's not like we're videoing ourselves, writing things up or turning in paperwork. It's a lot of work to do a contested case. So I want to mahalo you both, and Kanilua, Kamaunu for coming on. Mahalo nui, and good luck on your future endeavors. Aloha, mahalo.
Kia kopu, mahalo.